My wife's closest male friend disrespected me in my own home. Here's how I handled it. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. He put his feet on my coffee table and called me a guest. That sentence went through me like a cold nail. I'm Mark, 40, an electrician who labels every breaker and keeps spare fuses in a jar by the sink. My wife, Emily, manages a small clinic front desk. People love her for the way she says their names. Caleb, her closest male friend since college, loves being loved. He arrived that evening with a half-finished grin and a bottle of red he didn't pay for, and acted like our house was a set he'd rented for the night. "Big game on?" he asked, already thumbing the remote. I said no. "Then let's make it on," he said, like my answer was a sticky note he could peel off. He kicked his shoes off, left them pointed at the hallway like they were planning to return without him, and winked at Emily. "Tell your guest to relax," he laughed, staring at me while addressing her. "I've worked emergency calls at 2 a.m. on ladders and sleet, wired panels and crawl spaces where raccoons sounded like burglars. I'm not quick to anger. I've learned you get better work done by turning down the voltage. But disrespect inside your own walls does something different to your wiring." "Feet," I said, tapping the table. He smirked and lowered them an inch. "Not enough." "Caleb," Emily said softly, the peacekeeper voice. "Let's be nice." He goosed the air with both hands. "Just kidding. Mark knows I'm family." The word made my jaw clench. Family don't test every fence to measure how high you'll let them climb. Dinner was burgers and a salad I chopped because chopping steadies my hands. He took the chair at the head, the one I sit in when my father visits, and told a long story about a co-worker who thought he was in charge. "Some men need to feel like owners," he said, eyes glancing off me like a cue ball. I laughed once, short, the sound a breaker makes before it trips. "Bathrooms down the hall," I said later, after he washed exactly 0 dishes and asked where I kept the good glasses. He patted my shoulder on the way past, a friendly hit that landed like a claim. I stared at the spot until the skin warmed back to mine. Then I walked to the sink, counted 3 breaths, and told myself I'd address it calmly after dessert, after Emily wasn't in mediation mode, after the house felt less electrified. He smiled at my wife and called me a guest here tonight. Emily met Caleb freshman year, 2 shy kids who turned shared cafeteria tables into safe islands. He drove her to night classes when her car died. She helped him quit smoking by texting him carrot emoji at the witching hour. I entered a decade later. When we married, I told myself you don't evict history, just mark the property lines. Caleb moved from couch guest to perpetual drop-in. He has a talent for arriving with jokes and appetites. He also has a talent for acting like boundaries are caution tape. Bright, tearable, temporary. Why I tolerated it? Because Emily's laugh is the best sound in my house, and he could pull it out of her on rainy Tuesdays. Because my job teaches patience, and because I'm the kind of man who believes you can solve almost anything with a list and time. Because saying no to someone your wife calls family can feel like saying no to your wife. But cuts accumulate. 2 weeks before the coffee table night, we hosted a backyard barbecue. Caleb told a story about assembling Emily's IKEA bed in grad school. "We practically lived together," he said lightly, watching me. "Well, on weekends." People laughed. Later, while I flipped chicken, he leaned in and murmured, "She's always needed someone who gets her, you know? Like a real partner." He clinked his beer to my tongs as if we were teammates on the same joke. The meat hissed, so did something inside me. I brought it up to Emily after guests left. "He crosses lines," I said. "It's jokes now. Next, it's something else." She rubbed my arm, eyes tired. "Caleb's harmless," she said. "He performs. Everyone knows that." I said, "I don't want a performance in my kitchen." She sighed. "I'm always between you two. Please don't make me referee every minute." I promised to try. Trying looked like deep breaths, like replacing my irritation with tasks, sharpening knives, cleaning grill grates. Trying looked like letting small things slide so I could catch big things cleanly. But sliding is a slope, and slopes don't end where you think they do. Then he raised his glass and toasted her real partner, right beside me. Red flags multiply quietly, like cracks under paint. The first one pinged at 11:47 p.m. On a Tuesday. A message on Emily's tablet, Caleb, sending a meme about married men with quiet jobs, followed by a wake and a winky face. She was in the shower. The tablet flashed and dimmed. I stared at the screen too long, then set it down like it might sting. When she came out, I said, "He texts late." She shrugged into pajamas. "He doesn't sleep well," she said. "It's not about you." Friday, a second flag. In the hallway, Caleb brushed past Emily to reach the coat closet, put his hand on her back, fingers a little too familiar, and left it there a beat longer than polite. She gently lifted his wrist and laughed it off. He wove the moment into his next sentence like thread through fabric. I told myself I imagined the extra second. I didn't like the man it made me to count seconds. The third flag clinked against the floor. I was looking for a spare flashlight in the junk drawer when I found a brass key on a ring labeled guest. It was one of ours, the old cylinder we replaced last spring. "Why's this in here?" I asked. Emily's throat moved. "Oh, that? Caleb had the old key for dog sitting. Remember when we went to my sister's? He must have dropped it in there. I'll get it back." I held it up. "We changed the lock." She smiled too quickly. "See? No harm. One lock changes, another opens." I started writing dates on a notepad I keep by the fuse panel. Nothing accusatory, just notes. 11:47 p.m. meme. Friday, hallway touch. Sunday, found key. My job demands logs, equipment, service calls, amperage. Logging feelings felt strange, like measuring fog. But paper holds truth when memories try to bargain. When I finally asked Caleb not to drop by unannounced, he laughed like I'd told him Santa needs a badge. "Brother," he said, clapping my shoulder. "This place is my second home." Emily said so. I looked at her. She looked at the floor. "I said you're welcome when we're home," she murmured. He heard what he preferred. I took the key to the garage and set it on the workbench under the flashlight's beam. I held the key and understood how easily doors move loyalties. Caleb started using our address like a clubhouse. It began with "we'll swing by before the movie," but swing by became stage here, and stage here became a full-on planning session while I was on a Saturday call swapping a fried main breaker across town. I came home to pizza boxes on the counter, our Bluetooth speaker thumping a playlist I didn't make, and a circle of shoes by the door pointed like compasses. Caleb had his sleeves pushed up and Emily's favorite throw over his shoulders like he owned the weather. "Did you know everyone was coming?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Emily flushed. "It was last minute." Caleb texted, "I thought you'd be late." He raised his beer. "We're family, man. Your house has better light." I looked at the smears of sauce on the marble and closed my eyes until the urge to start scrubbing passed. That night supposedly ended at 10. It was still bright at 11, and the brightness was laughter on the back patio. "Just wine," Caleb promised earlier. "Just catching up." At midnight I texted Emily, "Work early, please wrap." She sent back a hard, and 5 minutes. 5 minutes arrived and left, the way boundary minutes always do. At 12:32, the patio door slid open and Caleb walked in for more glasses, humming. He glanced at me and said, "Don't wait up, big guy." At 12:47, the neighbor, Tessa, who sees everything without making a parade of it, texted me, "Are you okay?" Saw group still there. Looked cozy. I stared at that word until the letters blurred. At 1:03, the door finally closed. Emily crawled into bed smelling like Merlot and apologies. "We lost track," she whispered. I said, "We don't lose track in our house when I've asked you to keep track." She went quiet. "You're being rigid," she murmured, turning her back. In the morning, Caleb had left a note on the fridge in fat marker. "Your couch, the bars." He'd drawn a smiley face wearing sunglasses. I stood there, sharp it into my own kitchen like a prop. I took a photo of the note and saved it to a folder I'd titled House Log. Evidence isn't romance, but it keeps the future from misremembering. When I opened my phone to file it, a new alert blinked from the doorbell app. Motion detected. Person at door. 12:52 a.m. And from the hallway camera, a notification pinged. Motion detected at 12:52 a.m. The footage showed Caleb leaning toward our doorbell, not ringing, just checking his reflection, smoothing his hair with the kind of vanity that reads as rehearsal. He looked past the lens into my hallway like he was timing exits. I saved the clip twice. When I showed Emily, she shrugged. He probably stepped out to call a ride. I pointed to the timestamp. Then why did the patio voices keep going? She folded laundry with fast hands. "You're reading into everything." Reading into everything became the accusation of the week. In the neighborhood group chat, someone posted a photo of Saturday's crowd on our patio. Love spontaneous nights. And tags rolled in that did not include me. Another chat spun up, barbecue besties, and I learned I wasn't in it when Tessa asked if I'd seen the funny thread about me labeling the spice rack. She winced when I said no. They're making fun of your neatness, she admitted, and your rules. That evening I told Emily I wanted the drop-ins to stop and private visits to end. Let's schedule, I said. We schedule everything else that matters. She looked stricken. He's my oldest friend, Mark. He helps me decompress from the clinic. You're asking me to choose. I kept my tone even. I'm asking you to respect our house and marriage. She stared at the sink. The drain hummed like a held breath. At dusk, Tessa knocked with lemonade and the candor I've come to count on. Write it, she said, sliding a notebook across the island. Dates, times, what was said, who was present. Boundaries in writing, too. Not to weaponize, but to be clear. Gaslighting loves fuzziness. She tapped the notebook. If you go to counseling, this keeps the room honest. I wrote. Tuesday, late night meme, awake. Friday, back touch in hall, too long. Saturday, party without notice, note on fridge, motion at 12:52. I added tone tags, smirk, shrug, wink, because tone is how people erode rules. Emily saw the list and went pale. You're building a case, she whispered. Against who? I said, against forgetting. That night, the barbecue besties thread lit up my wife's phone with laughing emojis I couldn't see. She flipped it over like a card she didn't want me to draw. I heard her nails tap the glass in a rhythm that sounded like yes when I had asked for no. In bed, she turned away and whispered, almost to the wall, you're making him feel unwelcome in a place that's always been his. And in the dark, my phone buzzed with a new group invite that did not include my name. The ignition clue arrived by accident. Emily had forgotten to disable Cloud Sync on her old tablet, the one we used to stream cooking shows before we learned every sauce ruins a case. A banner slid across the screen at breakfast. Your backup is complete. Beneath it, a tiny link. View messages saved to archive. I looked at Emily. She looked at her coffee. I'll check it later, she said too quickly. When she left for the clinic, I opened the archive with hands that wanted to be the bigger man and an index finger that knew bigger men still read the manual. The thread names were small knives. EM plus Caleb, Vanish, After Hours Vent, Mark Chill Team. Inside, screenshots of Caleb mocking my house commandments, a photo of my fuse labels with the caption, Pastor Mark preaching the gospel of off. Emojis burned like paper confetti. Then messages from Emily. Nothing romantic, but plenty of don't tell Mark, he'll spiral, and he hates drop-ins, so come after 10. One screenshot made me sit down. Caleb had texted. He needs structure. We can use that. Little pushes. He'll break before she will. A minute later, I'm fixing their marriage, trust me. A friend replied with 4 cry-laugh faces and king energy. I printed nothing. I took photos with timestamps because originals matter and printers betray you when you need them not to. Then I closed the tablet, breathed into a dish towel until the world steadied, and called Tessa. She listened without seasoning her silence. You're not crazy, she said. And you're not cruel for wanting your home back. You need 2 things, a boundary agreement and a plan if they refuse. That evening, I laid the tablet on the island and told Emily exactly what I saw. No voice raised, no name called, just dates and sentences. She cried, then went angry, then small. I hid messages because you overreact, she said. I didn't want another lecture about keys and quiet hours. I held up the worst line. He'll break before she will. She looked like someone who just realized the magician stole the watch while bowing. He didn't mean it, she whispered. I slid a sheet across to her. 3 lines, plain English. No visits without both spouses present. No private chats that exclude the spouse. No keys, ever. Counseling starts next week. She stared, torn between reflex and recognition, then nodded once. Outside, someone knocked twice and didn't wait for an answer before the latch tested. And on the 3rd knock, the handle turned like the door still belonged to him. I opened the door before Caleb could shove it. He stood there with that permanent half-smirk, holding a 6-pack like a peace offering. Brought the good stuff, he said, breezing past me before I could answer. The smell of citrus and aftershave followed him into the kitchen. Emily froze at the island, eyes darting between us. "Caleb," I said, "steady. We need to talk about boundaries." He laughed, setting the bottles down. "Boundaries? Man, this is family. You don't draw chalk lines for brothers." He cracked one open, ignoring the glasses, and tipped it back like he was already home. I pulled out the paper I had written the night before, the 3 rules, and slid it across the counter. "These are the terms. No visits without both of us present. No private chats. No keys." Emily's eyes welled. "Please, let's not." Caleb cut her off with a chuckle. "What's this, marriage court? You making her sign contracts now? That's controlling, Mark." He winked at Emily. "I'd never cage you like that." That word, cage, lodged in me. I kept my voice low. "This is about respect, not cages." He leaned in, lowering his tone to mock mine. "Respect? You mean insecurity? You're scared she talks to me because I actually get her." His hand brushed the counter close to Emily's, a gesture just shy of claiming. Emily whispered, "Stop, Caleb." But he didn't. He leaned back, smug, and said, "You can't police friendship. That's pathetic." I pulled out my phone, opened the cloud archive, and set it face up between us. The screen glowed with his words. "He'll break before she will." His smirk faltered, just a fraction. Emily's breath hitched. "You said you were fixing our marriage," I said. "By breaking me first?" He swallowed, smirk rebuilding. "Joke. Banter. You took it literal." "Dates, times, words," I replied. "I don't take jokes at midnight in my house." For the first time, he was silent. Emily wiped her eyes. The paper with the 3 rules sat untouched on the counter between us. And then my phone buzzed with a new alert from the doorbell camera. Caleb had been here the night I worked late, and he hadn't come alone. The clip was short, but it landed like a hammer. 2 figures on the porch, Caleb and another man from his circle. Caleb held up my spare chair, laughing, while the other carried bags inside. The timestamp was 9:14 p.m. On the night I'd worked overtime, fixing a burned breaker on Maple Avenue. Emily had texted me then, saying she was turning in early. I looked at her now, my phone glowing between us. "You said you were asleep." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Caleb stepped forward, too fast. "We crashed here, ordered food, waited for you." She must have forgotten. I replayed the clip, volume up. The sound was clear, Caleb saying, "Don't worry, Mark won't be home till midnight." The man laughed. "This place is better than the bar." Emily's face went white. "I didn't know." "Didn't know?" I asked quietly. "Or didn't want to know?" Caleb tried to recover. "It's not what it looks like. We were just hanging out. No big deal." But the receipts on my credit card app told a different story. Bar tabs charged to Emily's card at 11:36 p.m. That night, 2 miles away, her name signed, but not in her handwriting. I held up the screen. "Explain this, too." Emily shook her head, eyes filling. I trusted him to cover tabs, just once." Tessa's words came back, gaslighting love's fuzziness. I pushed the 3 rules forward again. "This ends now. You either sign it, Emily, or we both admit what this has become." Caleb scoffed, grabbing his jacket. "You're pathetic. Policing your wife like she's a teenager. No wonder she comes to me for real conversation." Emily flinched at that, finally snapping. "Enough, Caleb." Her voice cracked. "This is my marriage, not your playground." He stared at her like she'd betrayed him. "After everything I've done to keep you sane?" I stepped between them. "Get out." He smirked one last time, but his eyes weren't laughing. "This isn't over, Mark. She'll see who really gets her." And as the door closed behind him, my phone buzzed with another message. This time from Tessa, warning me the neighborhood group was already buzzing about what Caleb had just posted. Tessa's text read, "He's spinning it. Says you locked him out of Emily's life. Posts are blowing up. Check the group." I opened the neighborhood forum and felt my stomach knot. Caleb had written, "Sad when controlling husbands try to cage friendships. Some of us just want her happy." The replies stacked fast, half supportive, half skeptical. Screenshots of his fridge note, his patio selfies, even one of him holding our dog popped up like exhibits in a trial I hadn't agreed to. Emily scrolled beside me, pale. "He's making you look like the villain," I finished. I took a breath. "Fine. Then we show the other side." I pulled up the cloud archive, the doorbell clips, the receipts. I emailed them to myself, then printed. Paper doesn't argue. Emily read them slowly, her hands trembling. I can't believe, she whispered. But the evidence spoke louder than her disbelief. That evening, I told her calmly, we need counseling. And Caleb stays out, completely. She nodded, but fear lingered in her eyes. Not fear of me, but of losing the friendship she once thought was safe. What if people think I chose wrong? She whispered. I said, people don't live here. We do. The next morning, Caleb showed up again, pounding the door like a salesman selling rage. I didn't open. His voice carried. You think you can ban me? Emily, you can't let him dictate this. Emily stayed frozen at the kitchen table, tears streaking down her face. My phone buzzed, another video alert. Caleb had crouched by the doorbell camera, sneering straight into the lens. You'll crack, Mark. You're not built for this. I saved the clip to the log. That night, I called Tessa. I need a mediator, I said. Somewhere public, with witnesses. She replied firmly, the HOA meets Tuesday. Bring your folder. I'll make sure the right people are there. And in that moment, I knew this wouldn't end quietly. It would end in the open, with every neighbor watching. Tuesday night, the community hall smelled of coffee and tension. Folding chairs lined the walls, neighbors whispering into their phones. At the front, mediator Cole adjusted his glasses, expression flat. Tessa caught my eye and gave a small nod. Emily sat stiffly beside me, hands clasped tight. Caleb strolled in late, wearing a blazer over his usual smugness. Didn't know we were holding court, he joked. Guess Mark wants an audience for his insecurities. A few people chuckled nervously. Cole cleared his throat. We're here to address boundary concerns raised by Mark and Emily. Everyone will have a chance to speak, but let's start with facts. I opened my folder. First page. The doorbell clip of Caleb checking his reflection at 12:52 a.m. Second page. The text he'll break before she will. Murmurs rippled. Third page. The bar receipt signed with Emily's forged signature. Fourth. Screenshots of him mocking my rules in private chats. Dates, times, documents, I said steadily. This isn't insecurity. It's intrusion. Caleb laughed too loud. Bananas. Out of context. Everyone knows texts can be twisted. He pointed at Emily. Tell them, Em. Tell them I'm family, not a threat. Emily's lips trembled. I thought you were safe, she whispered. But this is betrayal. The room went silent. Caleb's mask cracked, fury seeping through. You're really taking his side after I've carried you through every bad day? He doesn't get you. I do. Cole raised a hand. Enough. Mark has presented evidence. Caleb, return the spare key, cease visits, and respect their marriage. Continued intrusion will result in formal complaints. Caleb slammed the key onto the table, metal clanging like a gavel. This isn't over, he hissed. You'll regret pushing me out. And as he stormed out, I caught the look in his eyes. Rage sharpened into something far more dangerous than jokes or midnight texts. The hall emptied in tense waves, chairs scraping like disapproval. Neighbors avoided my eyes, some whispering about Mark the enforcer, others muttering about Caleb's outburst. Tessa stayed close, arms crossed, her silence a shield. Emily walked beside me, pale and trembling. When we reached the car, she whispered, I didn't realize how far he'd go. That night, the house felt lighter without Caleb's shadow. Still, my gut stayed tight. Men like him don't vanish, they regroup. At 11:23 p.m., proof arrived. My phone pinged with a message from an unknown number. She'll miss me. You can't patrol her heart. Attached was a photo of our house. Our porch light glowing, curtains drawn. Taken minutes earlier. I checked the cameras. Nothing. He'd stayed far enough to avoid detection, but close enough to remind me. Emily gasped when I showed her. Mark, what if I cut her off? We log it. We protect this house. The next morning, I filed a report with Officer Reed, a calm man who listened without flinching. Keep every message, every clip, he advised. Patterns matter. If he escalates, we'll act fast. At work, I wired a breaker panel with hands that should have been steady. Instead, every snap of wire sounded like a warning shot. At lunch, Tessa texted, he's ranting again online. Calls you paranoid. Says Emily's trapped. She added a screenshot. Caleb's words bled venom. Some men build cages and call them homes. Replies stacked, some cheering him, others calling him out. That evening, Emily sat at the kitchen table, eyes rimmed red. Did I feed this by protecting him too long? She asked. I squeezed her hand. He fed himself. You just didn't close the door soon enough. She nodded, tears slipping. At 2:07 a.m., my phone vibrated again. A new clip from the doorbell camera. Caleb's silhouette on the sidewalk, staring at our house, whispering something I couldn't hear. And when he finally turned, his mouth twisted into a grin meant only for me. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. Emily jumped at shadows, pulling curtains tight, whispering apologies she didn't need to make. I doubled down on security, new deadbolts, motion lights, even reinforcing the back gate. Documentation grew thicker. Texts, screenshots, timestamps, video stills. My logbook swelled with ink. One afternoon, Reed called. We traced that number. Burner phone. Purchased cash at a gas station near your neighborhood. Same night you got that porch photo. His tone hardened. He's watching. Stay sharp. That weekend, Emily suggested we drive out of town, breathe easier. But when we returned Sunday night, the smell of beer hit me before the lock clicked. In the living room sat a half-empty bottle on the table, condensation fresh. My chest froze. The cameras showed nothing. Then I realized he'd found the blind spot by the back window. Emily broke down. He was here, in our house. She clutched her arms like holding herself together. I called Reed. Officers arrived, took the bottle, lifted prints. Reed's eyes narrowed. If this comes back to him, it moves from harassment to breaking and entering. The next day, Caleb posted another dig online. Funny how some men need cops to feel safe in their own homes. That night, Emily sat across from me, face pale. I thought he was my friend. I thought he cared. Her voice cracked. Now I don't even know if I ever saw him clearly. I slid the folder toward her. This is who he is. Black and white. She opened it slowly, reading his own words back to herself. Tears fell onto the paper. Then my phone buzzed again, this time with a video message. Caleb, filmed in a bar, leaning close to the camera, glass raised. Enjoy your little police games, Mark. You can't win her heart with paperwork. And in the background of that clip, I caught Emily's clinic badge hanging from his keychain. The moment I saw Emily's clinic badge swinging from Caleb's keychain, the room tilted. Emily gasped, her hands flying to her chest. That's mine, she whispered, voice trembling. I lost it last week. I thought it fell under the counter. I replayed the clip, freezing the frame. There it was, her photo clear, laminated plastic shining under bar lights. Rage and dread tangled in my throat. He didn't just take your trust, I said. He took your identity. I called Officer Reed immediately. He met us at the station, jaw tight as he studied the paused video. This is escalating. He's moving from boundary violations to possession of personal property. It's leverage, intimidation. He typed notes fast. We'll push for a restraining order, effective immediately. At home, Emily sobbed into her hands. I feel sick. How did I let him get this close? How did I not see it? I held her, even as my own body shook. Because you believed the best in him, I murmured. That's not a crime. It's what he exploited. That night, I couldn't sit still. I checked locks, cameras, alarms until dawn. At 6:12 a.m., another message came. Caleb, filmed outside our clinic. He dangled the badge in front of the camera, smirking. She belongs where she's understood, not trapped by some man's logbook. I called Reed again, voice raw. He promised patrol cars near both our house and Emily's workplace. Still, fear coiled tighter. Caleb was no longer testing fences. He was scaling them. Emily whispered over breakfast. Mark, what if he won't stop until he ruins us? Our marriage, our peace, everything. I stared at the folder of evidence, thicker than a phone book now. Then we take it all public. Every text, every clip, every receipt. And as the words left my mouth, a new message arrived from Caleb. If you go public, you'll regret it more than you can imagine. I printed every file, bound the folder like a casebook, and handed copies to Reed and to Tessa. If anything happens, I told them, this speaks when we can't. Reed nodded gravely. You've built the record. Now we hold him accountable. That evening, the HOA gathered again, neighbors restless after weeks of drama. I stood before them, Emily clutching my arm, Tessa by my side. I spoke simply, showing only what mattered. Doorbell clips, forged receipts, Caleb's words in his own texts, The bar video with Emily's stolen badge. Gasps echoed. Murmurs grew into anger. Caleb, predictably, arrived late. He swaggered in, tried to laugh it off. Jokes, banter, misread signals. But when the badge photo appeared on the screen, his grin snapped. "She gave that to me," he shouted, voice cracking. Emily rose, shaking her head. "No, you stole it. You've been stealing everything. My trust, my safety, my peace." The room erupted. Neighbors who once chuckled at his jokes now glared like jurors. Cole, the mediator, raised a hand. "Effective immediately, Caleb is barred from this property. Any further intrusion will be met with full legal response. This is harassment and theft." Caleb's face twisted. "You're all blind. He's manipulating you with paperwork." He turned to Emily, desperation bleeding through. "You'll come back. You know I'm the one who understands you." Emily's voice shook, but held steady. "You don't understand me, Caleb. You only understood what you could take." Reed stepped forward from the back row, plain clothes, but unmistakable. "That's enough." His tone carried authority that ended the shouting. Caleb glared at me one last time, eyes burning with a mix of rage and humiliation. Then he stormed out, the echo of the door slamming like a final verdict. And in the silence that followed, I realized the true cost of exposure. We had cut him out, but at the price of a community split down the middle. Weeks passed. The restraining order was granted, and Caleb's name became a cautionary whisper rather than a presence on our porch. Some neighbors avoided eye contact at the store, still swayed by his online performances. Others quietly thanked me, saying they'd noticed his pattern long before but hadn't dared speak. Emily and I sat in counseling every Tuesday. At first, sessions were raw. Me, angry at her blind trust. Her, ashamed of defending him for so long. But over time, our words softened. She admitted, "I didn't want to see it. I thought avoiding conflict was keeping peace." Instead, I let him build a war inside our home. I squeezed her hand. "We can rebuild, but only if we keep every door locked, emotionally and literally." We set new rules. Shared calendars. No secrets. Friends welcome, but never above respect. Emily returned her spare clinic badge with a new photo, an act of closure. I rebuilt our patio furniture, replacing cushions Caleb's shoes had stained. It felt symbolic, reclaiming the space piece by piece. One morning, I stood in the doorway with coffee, watching the sun rise. The house was quiet, but it finally felt like ours again. Emily joined me, slipping her hand into mine. "We survived him," she whispered. "No," I corrected gently. "We survived because we chose us." To anyone listening, I'd say this: trust is sacred, and boundaries are its guardrails. Don't let charm, jokes, or history erase your right to feel safe in your own home. Document what you see. Speak when silence starts to rot you. Protect dignity before comfort. Because when a guest calls you a stranger in your own house, you have two choices: stay quiet and vanish, or stand tall and reclaim every inch of your floorboards. I chose to stand tall, and the house finally feels like home again.